Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Jamie Martin with the very latest on extremely dangerous Hurricane Ida, situated just offshore of parts of Louisiana right now. We are talking about a massive change which has happened. I was with you at just a little bit after 11 o'clock last night, giving you an update on what was going on. The strength hadn't changed. It stayed right there at 105. And again, it was at 105. It could have stayed at 105 during the overnight hours for folks that stayed up the entire time, didn't take a little nap. It was like, okay, when is this thing going to strengthen? It happened overnight, unfortunately. We're talking about a 150 mile per hour storm out there. We are talking massive, dangerous storm, possibly even getting up towards Category 5. In fact, we're going to be talking with Matt Capucci coming up in just a moment. I do want to give you guys information, though, on what's going on. Again, keep this handy. You got to keep the app handy because it's going to be alerting you what's going on as we progress our way through the morning here. In fact, we're getting updates every hour from the Hurricane Center, and we do have, of course, the aircraft out there taking readings right now, and that's giving us detailed information right now. So here's what we're talking about. Again, unfortunately, this is Ida continue its movement over here towards the coastal sections of Louisiana. The maximum winds 150 miles per hour. It's moving to the northwest at 15 miles per hour. So it's still moving out there. It hasn't slowed down yet. But again, these are all questions that need to be answered by the storm as it begins to get a little bit closer towards land. So things will be changing. So again, this is not something that's just going to hit and be gone. This is something we're going to have to deal with the rest of today, the rest of Monday, the rest of Tuesday, as all of this mess moves its way up through parts of the Tennessee Valley and towards the Ohio Valley. So again, very detailed information being sent in right now as far as the storm is concerned. And speaking of getting some detailed information, I wanted to be joined by Matt right now. And Matt, good morning. Boy, I tell you what, Matt, it's amazing how much it's changed just since last night. As I mentioned, at 11 o'cloff last night, it was 105. It hadn't changed at all. And now, what is going on with the Gulf of Mexico? What happened overnight? Give us some details on that and what we can expect for the rest of this morning and maybe heading into the afternoon.
This really is one of those worst-case scenario forecasts where we knew everything was primed to get this storm to rapidly intensify. It did that and then some. Right now has winds of 150 miles per hour, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if right now it was a Category 5. Just seeing some of the latest data, if we can take my screen right now, I'll show you some of the observation data from the hurricane hunters just coming in at this moment, and we'll be able to show you exactly what they found at their last pass through the storm. So as soon as you let me know we have these screen up. Here we go. Okay, so let's take a look at some of this data. This is their most recent pass through the storm. This is the track they took. They came in from the southwest, went north and east, and now they're getting ready for another pass like this. So we flip back over to here. I want to show you what their latest pass revealed. For starters, look right here. Possible Category 5 winds in the northeast eye wall. What you're seeing just a little while ago, see that blue line right there? That's flight level wind coinciding with the minimum in air pressure. That pressure just falls out. It's like a vacuum sucking air in. And so you have gusts at flight level right around 5 to 10,000 feet at about 145 knots. That's 165 miles per hour. Now that's flight level. That's Category 5 strength. But we're also estimating using something called SFMR, or kind of a microwave radiometer or something similar at the surface that gauges the sea level state, or rather the sea state, how crazy the waves are, and tries to match that to a wind speed. We're guessing winds about 160 miles per hour at the surface, which would be Category 5 strength. We haven't had this upgraded by the National Hurricane Center at this point, but for all intents and purposes, this is bordering at or is at Category 5 strength as it churns towards Grand Isle, Louisiana. You also can see on the right where that wind observation was located, right in the northeast eye wall. That's traditionally the strongest point in the storm. And this thing is a warm core monster. Hurricanes are heat engines. That's why they're able to sustain themselves over the warm waters. It provides some heat that goes right in the middle, goes kind of up like a chimney. And the bottom, you can see right there, that red line represents temperature through the storm. As the aircraft approaches, temperature goes up, and then look right in the middle. It is warm and humid inside the eye. Temperature increases about, looks like 10 to almost 15 degrees Fahrenheit, just in that little tiny narrow area of the eye, thanks to the air going inwards and rising upwards, which is incredible to see. Now, they dropped something called a dropson in the middle of the storm. That's basically the opposite of a weather balloon. Obviously, if you're flying at flight level, you can't have a weather balloon go up. Instead, this dropson goes down and measures the temperature and the humidity and the profile of the atmosphere the entire way down. On the right, you can see virtually calm winds, but look at this. There's this complete disconnect at the two different levels of the storm inside the eye, which shows me it's intensifying still. On the right, you can see temperature in the red line. In the green, that's dew point on the left. Now, when the two are close to each other, that represents a saturated air mass. When the two are farther apart, it's dry. So the temperature is actually warmer as you go up with height. It's also drier. So that means sinking air. The air is sinking, the air is warming, the air is drying at the upper levels and is still moist and saturated near the surface. In the eye, when you have sinking air, that shows you the storm is still intensifying. That's why the eye is clear. All the air spirals inwards in the storm and rises upwards through the eye wall. That's where the most intense winds are found. You have calm winds and sinking air in this little lull inside the eye. You have kind of dry air punching down, and that's why the eye is clear and calm, and we have virtually no clouds there. So when you see that, when you see a signature this robust with an inversion, a dry, warm layer that significant, that really just intense, that tells me the storm is likely maintaining strength very well or still intensifying, and surface air pressure has dropped to about 936 millibars. Imagine if you were, say, on top of the Empire State Building. You'd have lesser air up there thanks to how high you are in the atmosphere. Similar effect here. There's just a missing air because it's being vacuumed up and out, so the atmosphere actually weighs less on top of you and therefore has less surface pressure, and that's what we're seeing. About 8-10 hours ago, we were talking pressures in the 950s. Right now, we're around 936. So to plummet that much in the course of only 8 to 10 hours signifies extreme rapid intensification and really a worst-case scenario event. And I haven't seen an event like this since Hurricane Michael in 2018. But it's crazy to think that before that, the last Category 5 to hit the U.S. was Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. And we should stress, this has not been confirmed as a Category 5 yet. Winds right now estimated to be 150 miles per hour. So the same strength as a Category 4 Laura when it came ashore roughly a year ago to the day in Lake Charles, Louisiana. That said, it's oftentimes tough to get a concurrent Category 5 upgrade. They may go back after the fact and say, hey, this was a Cat 5. So if you know folks in Louisiana, or if you're considering, well, if you're there right now, obviously treat this like a high-end Cat 4, Cat 5. At that point, it makes no difference. If your house blows away, like it very well could in the Outer Banks of, say, Grand Isle, it doesn't matter if it was 150, 155, 160. Gone is gone. And so the wind damage with this will be extreme. We do want to emphasize that the strongest winds occur in a very short, kind of shallow area of the storm in the northeast eye wall. So the 150 mile per hour wind gusts in that very tiny area near the middle, and hopefully you can see this well, 110 mile per hour winds out a little bit farther. So much of kind of the Mississippi River Delta, and especially south and west, we'll see that. Grand Isle, a place along that area, that kind of peninsula in Louisiana, will see 110 plus mile per hour wind gusts. The New Orleans metro area may very well see gusts upwards of 90 miles per hour. I think this could be a little bit worse than Hurricane Zeta last October, which was a Category 3 storm when it moved through the New Orleans metro area. But really, you can see the core of these storms is compact, as are the strongest winds. So we should stress, not everybody will see these winds. In fact, very few, if any, people will see the 150 mile per hour winds. But it doesn't take winds of that strength to cause serious damage, injury, and unfortunately, really a worst case scenario type thing as they plow ashore. Winds will weaken as they head inland. So that's why we say I'm confident in winds of 80 to perhaps 90 miles per hour in the New Orleans metro. Tough to say if they'll see more than 100, but that said, winds like that are still serious enough. And when you consider it's plowing ashore surge, it's still a bad sign. The one good piece of news, if there really is any good news out of all this, is the fact that this storm is smaller than Hurricane Katrina was. Remember, Katrina was a Category 5 20 hours before landfall and was weakening on landfall, but it was an enormous storm. And so the fact that it was strong for a long time and big for a long time meant it pushed ashore so much water. Storm surge up to about 27 feet with that one. This will not be that. We could see surge 10 to 15 feet out by Grand Isle, but I think the chance of a more significant surge is lesser this time around thanks to a more compact storm and the fact that just even 8 to 10 hours ago it was a high Cat 2, low Cat 3. So it just wasn't quite as strong as Katrina was even 20 hours before landfall. So that's the only piece of good news with this, is that surge won't be quite as bad as Katrina. But that said, you never want to compare two events. Things are different every single time. Things are nuanced every single time. You may have seen, not the worst Katrina, but you might get the worst this time around or vice versa. So it's imperative that if you're in an evacuation area, you have heeded that. If you're hunkering down, you are ready for that. And one thing I want to mention too, with winds like this, we will likely see the issuance of extreme wind warnings, or EWWs, which are very rare alerts. They're basically souped up tornado warnings that are things that say, hey, we're getting Category 3 plus eye wall winds of 115 miles per hour or more. They are something that you never, ever will see unless you're in the vicinity of a landfalling Category 3 plus eye wall. And it's really an alert of last resort that, hey, if anyone's straggling, if anyone is still here and you haven't evacuated, A, it's too late to do so. But B, you have to be in your shelter right now, treat it like a tornado coming. And this eye wall will be like an EF3 tornado that lasts for 30, 40, 50 minutes, and then you have the eye, and then you have the eye wall again. So this will be an extended event if you're riding out the eye wall. Hopefully you're not. Hopefully you've sheltered, and hopefully you're out of the area. But if you are, it will be a high-end event. And interestingly enough, it was, I think, Hurricane Charlie back on August 13, 2004 in Florida, where these tornado warnings were first issued for the eye wall because forecasters had nothing else they could issue. They just issued tornado warnings at the time and drew those around the eye wall saying, hey, tornado-like wind speeds coming. They did the same thing during Hurricane Katrina with 11 tornado warnings issued for the parishes around New Orleans as that eye wall came through. And then eventually they created a new alert called the extreme wind warning. The same thing's happening this time around. They'll use that. They used it during Hurricane Laura. They used it during Hurricane Matthew. They've used it during hurricanes since, including Harvey and Rockport, Texas. But that alert will likely be issued, and that is basically as dire of a tropical alert as you can get when you see the extreme wind warning. It tags you in the emergency alert system, wireless emergency alerts. It goes out over TV. Obviously, folks here likely won't have power, but it's crazy to see what's going on now. And I want to, if I can, hop online and show you a look at the satellite right now, because here you see this thing is an atmospheric buzzsaw. You're seeing lightning periodically flash in the center. The eye wall is crackling with lightning. Earlier on, it had lightning all the way around, and this is what we call an eel, an enveloped eye wall lightning signature. And when you have that much lightning sparking around the middle of a storm, that shows you it is an extremely intense system that is likely still continuing to rise in strength. Now, remember, hurricanes, of course, are very strong, but they're spiral systems. The air goes in horizontally like this and starts to slowly ascend towards the middle. So you don't always get the real upward motion you need to get charge separation and lightning. This time around, there's so much turbulence in the eye, in the middle of the storm, that you are able to get that. And so whenever you see lightning in the eye of a storm or in the eye wall of a storm, that's a signifier of extreme upward motion with a strengthening storm, in this case Category 4, perhaps on the border of Category 5, and really a worst-case scenario. There are no other words. And you can see even cloud tops right now are still getting cooler up here in the northern part of the storm. You'll notice a little bit more white on the satellite right now. That shows you we are still seeing intensification, and the taller those cloud tops get, the colder they get. And when you see cloud tops that tall, we're talking 50, 55,000 feet. An extreme electric charge up there likely too, but 50,000 feet, very cold, and ultimately just a hellacious event unfolding there. You can see it well on this right here. And you even see some kind of ribbing and sort of weird clover shape inside the eye. These are likely mesovortices. So the strongest eyes have such a discontinuity in angular momentum. In other words, the eye wall is teeming with extreme, crazy, rapid spinning. And then inside the eye, there's really nothing. And so you have this discontinuity in angular momentum in really spin. And so you get a flux of that inside. And sometimes that results in smaller eddies, smaller areas of spin on the inside of the eye wall. And that's why within an eye, you can get what we call these mesovortices, these smaller areas of spin. But that kind of kinks the eye wall a little bit, gets these weird bends, and causes irregularities in the surface wind at the time when you're in the inside of the eye wall. I've been inside eye walls before. I've seen those kind of mesovortices rotate through. You'll think you're in the eye, you'll think it's calm, then all of a sudden you'll get a gust to 100+ miles per hour come through. And so that's one of the stranger things with this. We should also mention that within the eye wall of a storm like this, you can very likely get tornadoes, mini swirls too. Dr. Fujita and Dr. Fujita and Dr. Wakimoto back in 1992 following Hurricane Andrew surveyed the damage in, I believe it was not Coral Gables, but to Homestead, Florida, that was severely impacted by the storm. They found evidence of tornadoes or these small strips of tornado-like damage that were very narrow. And what happens in a storm like this, even above the surface, winds are moving much stronger at about 300, 400 feet. That creates upward motion near the ground. And any little eddies that form as a result of, even wind flowing around a building, you get these little surface eddies, they can be stretched upwards to about 400, 500, 600 feet. That strengthens the eddies, may only be a couple feet wide, but they produce mini swirls that are 40, 50 miles per hour strong. But when you factor that on the background of broad 130 plus mile per hour winds in the eye wall, you can get a combined effect with a very narrow swath of 180 mile per hour damage. And so you get these strips of exceptional damage, extreme damage of resulting from that. So they're like tornadoes, but they're called mini swirls. They live inside the eye wall. They're way too small to see from radar. Oftentimes, we can see a tornado-scale vortices on radar, and Karen Kosiba, Josh Werman, two meteorologists for the Severe Weather Center in Boulder, Colorado, actually drive radar trucks into storms like this. I don't know if they did this one, but I've teamed up with them before to cover that. But they drive radar trucks in trying to resolve those vortices. But even the mini swirls are so small that you can hardly see them on radar. But really, this is a worst-case scenario event, Jamie, and to see an event like this unfold barely a year after Hurricane Laura, hitting the same state that saw three significant Category 2, 3, 4 storms last year, and in an era where we're seeing, it seems like, significant hurricanes every year, major hurricanes hitting the U.S. every year, it's just crazy to think that this is perhaps something we have to face every year. It really is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Boy, I tell you what, there's so much information, and thank you so much, because this is, especially for a weather geek such as me who loves meteorology, the thing I love about it are people like you and people that are out there getting more of this information to us that we can give to people out there and get them informed, because, you know, not everybody's a meteorologist, that's for sure. So we count on the experts to help us get that message out also. So, Matt, boy, I tell you what, great information. I really appreciate it. We will be talking to you for sure off and on throughout the rest of today. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Anytime.
All right. Boy, I tell you what, boy, things really busy out there once again. Let's go ahead and roll through some of the numbers here. You know, I could decipher some of those things that Matt was talking about. Matt was talking about a lot of things that were going on out there. And you know, it's one of those things. This is a very intricate storm. That is for sure. As he mentioned, though, the good news is it's not huge right now, but it's still going to be causing a tremendous amount of problems for the folks in parts of Louisiana. And again, things are going to be kicking up over towards New Orleans itself. Baton Rouge, you're going to be dealing with the problems also. So we're talking about a lot of problems. Again, get your app out and check this out. Let me go through the numbers once again, because we're still waiting. Just let's go about another 10 minutes or so. We should get another update. They're doing them every hour to keep everyone informed exactly where this is. But again, this is Ida right now, Category 4, 150 mile per hour winds. The pressure really has dropped drastically during the overnight hours. Most folks don't really pay attention to what the pressure is doing, but it's the maximum winds here, and that's the 150 miles per hour. Moving also, that's the big thing too. Where's it heading? Northwest at 15 miles per hour. So again, scooting its way out there. As far as the actual storm is concerned, where it's heading is going to be the big question out there right now. And again, where it's located right now, 75 miles just off to the southeast of Grand Isle, Louisiana, about 60 miles just off towards the southwest of the mouth of the Mississippi. So again, we're not talking about a grand amount of things. You know, it's if you were driving, think if you're driving down the highway, you're less than an hour from the coast right there. So again, it's extremely close right now, and we're going to have to wait and see whether it continues that movement to the northwest at 15 or whether it slows down as it gets a little bit closer towards actual land. So this thing can move in very quickly. It could be in by noon. Or it could maybe wait till 2, 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon. So again, it does not pay attention to what we want to say. It does whatever it wants to do. So again, that's going to be the big question mark. When is this thing going to move on shore? Because once it moves on shore, the good news, if there is good news, is the fact that it will start to lose that fuel, and that's that warm water. So again, as soon as it moves on shore, it'll start to die off gradually. Not going to be something super quick, but it will start to lose its punch as it moves its way on shore. So Louisiana is going to be dealing with that, but the good news is it'll start to slowly help as far as getting onto land. Let me go ahead and take you over to WSI and show you some of the other activity here. So I do want to show you what we're looking at, not only today, but also heading into tomorrow. Again, this is the actual center of circulation, again, just off of Louisiana. And now by tomorrow, what we're looking at here as we continue our way through here, again, winds will die out very quickly. In fact, as we head, this is 1 a.m., that's going to be on Monday, tomorrow morning. Again, this is 2 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock Central time, 80 mile per hour wind. So again, that's what's going to happen to this storm. It's not going to last for that long, but as it does move on shore, obviously it's going to cause many problems for folks out there. Even as he was mentioning, Matt was mentioning, it's going to be going around, even over towards New Orleans, and it may not be getting getting hit directly by 150 mile per hour winds. However, 80, 90, maybe 100 mile per hour gusts, that's definitely going to cause massive trouble. And the big problem here is all of that water that's still going to get pushed up against there. Now, here's a look at the pathway itself. The path right now brings it up Tuesday morning, again, moving its way up towards the Tennessee Valley. That'll be with us all the way through Tuesday. By Wednesday, heading up through parts of maybe Kentucky, West Virginia area. It's going to be an area of low pressure by then. It's not going to be a tropical system at that point. However, it's still going to be producing plenty of rain in some areas that have already seen some problems. If you remember what happened just off to the west of Nashville when we had the fatalities there from the massive flooding. And again, we're going to see problems in that location at the same time. Here's what we're looking at as far as the warnings. Again, we've still got the hurricane warnings. Obviously, definitely needed back in through the southern parts here of Louisiana. So again, through the north of there, tropical storm warnings. And again, that's because the intensity will die off as it slowly moves its way on shore. That does include New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain. So again, areas that are going to see massive problems. Let's talk a little bit about that storm surge. Again, what we're looking at right now is right there along the area around Grand Isle. We're looking at probably 12 to 16 foot storm surges right there. Once you get up towards the actual Lake Pontchartrain area, over 10 feet in some spots. So again, definitely going to cause some problems. It's definitely going to be testing all of the levees up there, especially the ones that they have rebuilt. I'm so glad that they did that for sure. Hopefully everything else has been reinforced or replaced because they're going to need it. That is for sure. Especially as Matt was saying, with the amount of storms that we've already seen in the last 2 years, should I say, already, hey, when it's like that, you want to make sure you are set and ready for big problems. Here's a look at the Euro. Again, we're looking at that landfall moving just off to the south of New Orleans and then eventually hooking their way up towards here, what's left of Ida, over towards Jackson, Mississippi. And then moving its way just off to the east of Memphis, between there and Nashville, up to parts of Tennessee, and eventually moving back up here into parts of the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, and eventually being pushed off rather quickly after that. So the good news is it will be out of here, but folks are going to be doing a lot of cleanup, unfortunately, as we head in towards Monday and Tuesday here in parts of Louisiana. Here's a look at those water temperatures again during the overnight hours. This storm, Ida, moved its way over some of the warmest water, and that's why we're still dealing with that massive wind out there right now. Maximum winds 150. And again, here's what we're looking at as far as the arrival. Again, the arrival, it's already there. It is already there. Everybody, lots of folks probably do not have power, things like that. We're going to be looking at that in just a second. I'm going to go back to the app and check out some of the problems that they're looking at as far as that goes right now. But again, the arrival of those storm winds already taking place right now, and some of the worst weather is just offshore, and it's going to start moving in as we continue our way through. Let me go over here. One other part I was looking at was going to be, some of the, this is on a different computer, but I did want to look at it one more time again. Yeah, just checking. It's still 12 to 16 feet around Grand Isle. Again, that's what we're looking at, Lake Pontchartrain. Again, right now they're looking up to about 8 feet, and then once you get just offshore, just out of there, and you get into the Bay Area, it's about 8 to 12 feet as far as the storm surge is concerned. So that's going to be the big problem. Let's go ahead and jump over once again and head back over to the app, because I do want to show you what it looks like. Extremely impressive, and you almost don't want to say that, but it is. It's a very impressive looking signature here, and that's going to be that counterclockwise spin. That's the center of circulation. I am going to actually go down here, down towards the bottom here, and check out what's going on, power outages, and see if we even have it. A lot of these things aren't even being reported because they don't have a way to do it right now. Everybody's batting down, and they're not even waiting to tell it. Basically, everybody's going to be losing their power. That's for sure. That's going to be in this entire location here. Let me get you over here. See what we got is some reports here. Again, this is some ones around this parish here again, and we're talking about tons of people that are going to be losing their power off and on. In fact, if you haven't lost the power, you're going to see it lost pretty soon, all through parts of southern Louisiana. So again, this is going to be a massive problem, and as you can see, that counterclockwise spin is going to be moving its way inland. So again, we are talking about a massive storm, and let me see where we are time-wise. Let's see if we've got it. I'm trying to see if we have our new update yet. And let's see if we have the 6 a.m. Just to get close here. It is now 7:56, so it should be coming out any moment now. So I'll talk a little bit about what's going on. I know a lot of folks are just getting up. In most of the country, everybody, it's more of an interest than it is an urgency, because we're able, I'm in Orlando. In fact, Matt had even mentioned Hurricane Charlie that they did back in 2004 when they were talking about what warnings they were issuing. Back then, they just issued tornado warnings because of how massive the problems were around the center of circulation, the eye of Charlie as it moved its way on shore. I remember Charlie very well because I worked all through it. And that's one of those things that luckily they're learning a lot every year. Every time we get a hurricane, things like that, the officials and everybody, including folks like Matt, are learning different methods that can be used to keep people safer. And that's good news. And that's why when he's talking about the new things they're issuing in the EWW, basically, it's just basically saying, this is it. And, like he said, it's the same thing I like to say, don't like to say, but that's what I like to say because of the fact that it describes it. When you're talking about, everybody says, was my house hit by a hurricane? Or should I say a tornado? And it's like, or was it straight line winds? And it's like, it doesn't really matter. It still causes damage. At this point, you shouldn't be worried about specifics about it. You should just be worried about one thing, and that is, am I getting damage? Am I getting damage that's going to injure me? Is it going to be damage that could injure my family, my friends, my neighbors, things like that? At this point, in many locations, the wind is too dangerous to go out and even check on people. At this point, though, you may have to check on them after this passes. And again, that's when people really have to come together and really help each other out, that's for sure. And that's what it's going to be like back through parts of Louisiana as this continues to push its way through. Let me see if I've got it. I'm still waiting on, see if they may not, we'll see if they come up with another one here, 7 o'clock. So almost running into 8 o'clock Eastern time here, obviously 7 o'clock over in Central Time Zone. So I'm still waiting to see if the 7 o'clock comes. Until it does, though, again, let me flip back over here. Let me show you real quick, and it's going to have a little bit of a flash because I'm actually skipping back a little bit. Let me skip back here in my computer here. I do want to show you what it looks like here. Let me run back here, words, and then talk about the storm surge once again. Let me go back over one more. Okay, let me go and show you. Don't want to show you that. That's actually the green. That's the green screen right there for you folks. There we go. Okay, let me show you that track one more time because I do want to show you what it looks like right now. And again, we're real close, 150 mile per hour winds. We could wonder if we're going to get up to 155 this hour. And again, what we're looking at is the actual area of the center of circulation, the eye of Hurricane Ida, continues just offshore, and it is expected to continue that northwest movement. But again, it's going to start to shift more to a north-northwest movement as we continue our way through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening and overnight hours. In fact, it's eventually going to start to shift due north, and that's going to be swinging. That's going to be just after midnight here. It's going to start to turn more towards the due north and then start swinging more towards the northeast as we head towards later Monday and into Tuesday. So again, that storm is going to slowly move its way through parts of the Tennessee Valley. Now, the good news here is it's going to lose a lot of its punch. In fact, the wind speed is expected to be about 80 miles per hour, and that's going to be, again, just after midnight tonight and into Monday morning. So, again, it's not going to remain a Category 4 hurricane for that long, but while it is, it's going to cause devastating damage in that small area right around the eye of Hurricane Ida, and that's going to be the big problem. It's not overpopulated in that area of Louisiana that it is coming in at. That, I guess you could say, is the good news. It's bad for anybody that lives there. They should have, and hopefully everybody's evacuated from there. They're very smart people. They know when they need to get out, that's for sure. As far as New Orleans goes, again, it's going to cause some problems out there. That's for sure. They're going to have some problems also as we continue our way through. Okay, let me try one more time otherwise. Okay, don't have an update yet, but we're going to be watching for that. And again, we're going to be very busy throughout the morning and through the afternoon giving you more information, that's for sure. Stick around. We will keep you updated on what is happening. I'm meteorologist Jamie Martin. We'll see you back here in just a little bit. you.